At exactly 6:47 a.m., the USS Zumwalt cut through the calm waters of the South China Sea, positioned just over 110 miles east of the Spratly Islands. The destroyer's crew of 147 sailors moved across the deck with practiced efficiency, conducting final system checks on the ship's most advanced weapon, an experimental electromagnetic railgun mounted where a conventional 5-inch gun would normally sit. The weapon represented $500 million in research and development, capable of firing projectiles at Mach 7, over 5,300 miles per hour. Coffee steamed in the Combat Information Center below deck. The morning sun reflected off the gray hull. Everything appeared routine. But 240 miles to the northwest, something had just launched. The threat detection came first as a thermal signature picked up by an E-2D advanced Hawkeye surveillance aircraft circling 200 miles out. The radar operator's screen showed a contact accelerating impossibly fast, 0 to Mach 5 in under 90 seconds. The data transmitted instantly to the Zumwalt's Aegis combat system. In the Combat Information Center, the Air Warfare Coordinator watched the track develop on his display. Speed, Mach 5.2. Altitude, 82,000 feet. Trajectory, ballistic, then gliding. Classification, probable DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicle. Time to impact if maintained on current heading, 4 minutes, 38 seconds. The DF-17 represented China's answer to American naval dominance. The missile system cost approximately $15 million per unit, carried a conventional warhead weighing 1,300 pounds, and could maneuver during its terminal phase, making interception by traditional missile defense systems nearly impossible. Its glide vehicle separated from the booster at the edge of space, then surfed along the upper atmosphere at speeds that generated plasma around its nose cone. Standard SM-3 and SM-6 interceptor missiles, each costing $4 million and $4.3 million respectively, had less than 30% probability of kill against such a target. The math was simple and terrifying. The Zumwalt's commanding officer, Captain Sarah Chen, stood behind the tactical display. She'd trained for exactly this scenario 17 times in simulation. Her voice came calm and measured over the internal communications system. Weapons free. Engage with railgun. Fire when solution locked. The electromagnetic railgun represented a fundamental shift in naval warfare. Unlike conventional guns that used explosive charges to propel shells, the railgun used powerful electromagnets to accelerate a 23-pound tungsten projectile along 2 parallel rails. The system drew 25 megawatts of electricity, enough to power 18,000 homes, directly from the ship's integrated power system for a fraction of a second. Each projectile cost just $25,000. No explosive propellant, no rocket motor, just pure kinetic energy delivered at hypersonic speed. The weapon could fire 10 rounds per minute and hit targets up to 110 miles away with pinpoint accuracy. The fire control system calculated intercept solutions continuously, updating 40 times per second. Wind speed at altitude, target velocity, atmospheric density, Earth's rotation. The hypersonic missile was now 185 miles out, descending through 65,000 feet, pulling 4G in a lateral maneuver designed to defeat tracking radars. The railgun barrel elevated to 47 degrees, tracking the target's predicted trajectory. The capacitors charged, producing a rising hum the crew could feel through the deck plating. At 3 minutes, 12 seconds to impact, the weapons officer pressed the firing authorization. The electromagnetic pulse traveled down the rails in 10 milliseconds. The tungsten projectile left the barrel at Mach 7.2, 4,900 miles per hour. No flash, no explosion, just a crack of displaced air and a vapor trail. The projectile climbed on a ballistic arc, its guidance fins making micro-adjustments based on GPS and inertial data. Flight time to intercept, 47 seconds. The hypersonic missile continued its glide, now 140 miles out and accelerating through Mach 6. Its infrared seeker activated, searching for the heat signature of ship engines. The Chinese weapon had survived re-entry temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit and carried enough kinetic energy to punch through 3 feet of hardened steel. But it had one critical vulnerability. It could not maneuver aggressively without losing its aerodynamic efficiency. The flight path was predictable to a system calculating fast enough. 22 seconds after launch, the Railgun projectile reached the apex of its trajectory at 71,000 feet. At 31 seconds, it began its descent, now traveling at Mach 6.8, accelerated by gravity. At 43 seconds, the closing speed between projectile and missile reached Mach 12, over 9,000 miles per hour combined. The Combat Information Center crew watched two tracks converging on the display. Distance, 8 miles, then 5 miles, then 2 miles. Impact occurred at 44.3 seconds. The tungsten projectile struck the hypersonic glide vehicle's leading edge at a relative velocity that turned both objects into superheated plasma. The missile disintegrated instantly, fragmenting into thousands of pieces that tumbled through the atmosphere. Their threat eliminated 73 miles from the Zumwalt. The total cost of the intercept was $25,000. The cost of the destroyed Chinese missile was $15 million, cost exchange ratio 1 to 600. But the engagement wasn't over. The radar showed 3 more contacts launching from the Chinese mainland. The Aegis system classified them as DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missiles, older technology but still deadly, approaching in a saturation attack pattern designed to overwhelm defenses. The Railgun's capacitors began their charging cycle again. 12 seconds to ready. The first DF-21D was already 190 miles out, climbing through 150,000 feet on a pure ballistic trajectory. Speed was Mach 10 and accelerating. Time to impact, 3 minutes, 54 seconds. The tactical picture crystallized instantly. 3 missiles were spaced 40 seconds apart. The Railgun could engage all 3 if the timing held. Captain Chen authorized continuous engagement. The fire control computer prioritized targets by threat level and calculated a firing sequence. First shot at the lead missile. Reload. Second shot at the trailer. Reload. Third shot at the middle contact. Each intercept had to succeed. One failure meant a 1,800-pound warhead traveling at Mach 8 hitting the ship. The Railgun fired again, then again, at 12-second intervals. 3 tungsten projectiles climbed toward 3 incoming ballistic missiles in a carefully choreographed dance of physics and precision. The crew watched the tracks converge on their displays, 3 separate intercept geometries playing out simultaneously at hypersonic speeds. The first DF-21D died at 68 miles out, the second at 71 miles, the third at 65 miles. Total engagement time, 4 minutes, 18 seconds. Total ammunition expended, 4 rounds. Total cost, $100,000. 4 threats eliminated. 0 damage to the ship. The South China Sea fell quiet again. The Zumwalt's railgun barrel cooled, its capacitors discharged, its crew breathing steady for the first time in 5 minutes. What had just occurred represented more than a successful defense drill. The engagement demonstrated a fundamental shift in the calculus of naval warfare. For decades, the United States Navy had relied on expensive interceptor missiles to defeat expensive attack missiles, a cost exchange ratio that favored attackers who could simply launch more threats than defenders could afford to stop. The Railgun flipped that equation entirely. At $25,000 per shot versus millions of dollars per interceptor, the economic advantage had shifted decisively to the defense. The strategic implications rippled outward immediately. China's investment in hypersonic missiles as carrier killers suddenly faced a counter that was faster, cheaper, and effectively unlimited by magazine depth. The Zumwalt could carry 600 railgun projectiles versus just 80 interceptor missiles. The cost to overwhelm its defenses had multiplied by a factor of 8. And because the railgun drew power from the ship's electrical system rather than relying on stored missiles, the magazine could theoretically be resupplied at sea with simple ammunition transfers, with no complex weapons handling required. Naval supremacy, once threatened by the hypersonic revolution, had found its answer in electromagnetic acceleration. The future of fleet defense had just been written in the skies over the South China Sea, one tungsten projectile at a time.